Hello, my name is George. This is GLLR Cars. Welcome to the channel. Today we're talking BMW 340i. The BMW 340i is probably the most sold non-SUV the BMW has in a world where SUVs are the best-selling vehicles out there. If you take that out of the equation, we're going to talk about what makes this car so popular. This 340i is the one with the upgraded engine. It's got the inline 6 engine with twin turbos producing 320 horsepower. In fact, this engine is the same engine that you find in the BMW 440i in a few other products. They have a 5 Series version of this, and even the 7 Series, the 740i, has the same engine. Well, for a car this small, I would expect that it will perform well, but we'll take a look at that during the driving portion of this review. In terms of just why this car is so popular, it is a compact car. It offers seating for 5 people. We'll talk a little bit about how comfortable that may be. The agility, the driving experience, everything that we hear about from BMW, we get to see it with our own eyes here and see how much of that holds up. What makes this car so popular? Why is it that it sells so much? So let's start with the design. If you look at the design, this car has a very nice appearance. This 340i does not have many upgrades in terms of cosmetics. The view is the blacked out grills and the ground effects with the fog lights and the very slim lights here give it a very good appearance. The long hood with the these lines that come, there's the 2 straight that come from the edges of the hood coming towards the middle, about 3/4 in, and then there's this curved one here. If you look really close, there's this curved line here that gives it a very nice design. It kind of flows and tries to meet these straight lines on both ends. So very nice, smooth touch in terms of the design there. The very nice wheels. What I like about it, not so much as the dual spoke, what I like about them is that they're not flat. So if you look at the wheels from this angle, see that the center is recessed, and that gives it a very nice aggressive appearance. The view of the car with the 4 doors has some very nice proportions. I think what may appeal for some may not appeal for others. When you try to squeeze this many passengers into a small car, you do need to make certain accommodations. For instance, the space between the C-pillar and the back is very small, maybe because they don't want the car to get too big, then it wouldn't be as agile. It's got the space where it needs it, where it needs it, it depends on who is choosing. If you're needed for passenger space and you're willing to sacrifice space for maybe a larger engine, then that wouldn't be your priority. But if it is your priority, they did put the space where most drivers would want it. And most people pick this car because of the driving experience, not because of how many people you can fit into a small car. The rear end of the car, very smooth flowing. One thing to point out about this car, and difference with the next one in size like the 4 Series, is that it does sit a little bit taller. It does, like the height of the car versus the length of the car, that ratio, the height of the car is a little bit more. So as a result of that, when you look at the car from the front or even the back, it looks a little more narrow than, say, a 4 Series, a 440i, like one that I reviewed recently. Again, the design here, I like this, and the rear end, how all the colors are blended, where the bumper is, the dual exhaust, the trunk, it all feels like it's a single piece, which is very nice. So again, already covered the side. Well, not completely. On the side is very similar to many other BMWs, where you have this line that goes across the entire length of the car, and it gives it a little bit of a shoulder, not a whole lot, but it's very subtle. And like most BMWs, they don't try to put too many bells and whistles into their cars. When it comes to that design, they are somewhat conservative, and that would be a plus for many folks, including myself. If you're going to look in the inside, the entrance is similar to other BMWs, in which you can stick your hand in to unlock, put your hand on these dashes that are right there to lock it, and if your key is in your pocket, it opens as such. By the way, speaking of the key fob that it has is no different than any of the other BMW key fobs. I know that there are some that are a little bit larger, that have a screen and you can do certain fancy things, like the 7 Series. There's one that you can even move the car. The key has got a small touchscreen and you can charge it inside a car. Well, don't expect that on these smaller ones, but again, standard BMW key. Looking inside, the interior is not the upgraded leather, but as you can see, it does have the same style of seat as the 4 Series. The seats, the contour and the shape of the seats are the same type. The leg extenders have this manual button to be able to extend it, as opposed to the power button that you see in the 5 Series or 7 Series. On the door, the buttons are familiar to the other BMW buttons for just window operation and mirror operation. Just go inside and turn the car on, pressing the start button here. The instrument cluster is no different than what you see on the 4 Series, even the 5 Series. They look very similar to this. When you start seeing a different type of instrument cluster, aside from the brand new ones that are coming out, like the Z4 or the 8 Series, or like in the 7 Series and the 6 Series, where you do have the analog instrument cluster, but you have these colored hues that change based on the mode that you're in, whether it's sports mode or comfort mode, etc. The infotainment system, it's a 2018 model. It is not touchscreen, so you control everything with iDrive. The iDrive that it has is not the upgraded one. So this one here has the smaller knob and fewer buttons. It just has the back-end option and media menu and communications option. So it really does not have, for instance, navigation. And so what basically the main menu looks like this. As you can see, it's changed from 2016 models. 2017 and later, they started to show these boxes for the different areas that you can navigate. And 2019 models and later, then this basically became a touchscreen, and you can swipe through these and set preferences on these buttons. The shortcut buttons and your controls for temperature are the same as we expect in the last few years. It hasn't changed very much. It does have heated seats, but it doesn't have cool seats in this case. And the shifter, similar to what you expect in pretty much all the models, it looks like this. The ones that have changed have been the later ones that has like the option for the crystal one. Your controls for parking assistance and the different modes here, as well as the traction control, are very, very similar to the 4 Series. Over here you have cup holder. Over here you have just a standard size glove compartment. Then over here, where the center console is, it is small as the 4 Series, not very deep actually, so you only keep a few things there, but it does feel a little bit wider for some reason. It may just be me. I haven't really measured it, but for the most part, that's what you get in terms of what the inside looks like. So here in the back, the first thing to point out is this seat is set up for my driving position at 5'10". I have it set up probably not all the way back, but considerably back. I think I'll have to try this, but if I were to move it all the way back, it may go back maybe about an inch, if such. I do have about an inch of knee space here. So for a person of my height, this will probably be, it's it will be comfortable for someone of 5'10" or less. Anyone taller than that, they may have some problem with knee space. In terms of head space, it's actually better than the 4 Series. And as I mentioned before, the 4 Series actually has a lower roof line to make it look a little bit sportier. So this one, they make it a little bit taller for more headroom, but then it makes the car look narrow because of those proportions. Where here we have a it's actually set up so that there is room for a third passenger here. So as such, as opposed to like in the 4 Series where they do a like a little pocket to put some like a cell phone or some other junk that you're holding in your hand. And it does have the same style of armrest with the cup holders here as the 4 Series, but because it's meant for having a third passenger, it does have that built-in headrest here. And this is the one that does give you a little bit of a visibility challenge, because on the 4 Series all this is open. You don't have this right here. But other than that, the interior gets the job done. Not a whole lot of anything special back here, more than you need. And it's a car that is meant to be sold at a price point that would make it affordable, and that's probably one of the reasons that this car is as popular as it is. Now, if you look in the trunk, this is actually quite impressive. The trunk is considerably big. If I were to estimate what we can fit using the golf bag as an example, it's used everywhere, so I might as well use that as a reference. I could probably fit about 2 golf bags and still have space for something else to squeeze in there that's maybe about 4 inches wide. And then up on top, I probably have room for maybe 2 more golf bags. The only problem is the depth of this trunk comes at such that they will probably stick out a little bit, so it may be a bit of a challenge on the top, simply because this doesn't come all the way out. But again, for most needs, let's say if you go to the supermarket getting groceries, things like that, this will be adequate. Now, if you're looking to do a run for say a Home Depot or a Lowe's or some place like that, and you're talking, you know, this is not the car for you. But it will meet most needs for a daily driver, and even to some degree, even for a small family. If they don't want to have an SUV and they just don't want to be at the price point of one of the larger 4-door cars, this car does fit the bill for that. First impressions, when it comes to acceleration, this BMW 340i has the same inline 6-cylinder twin turbo engine as the 440i. So the acceleration is on par to a car like that. So when I punch it, you get really good torque, really good punch, and this car is the same platform as the 4 Series. The 440i is based on this platform. It's just shaped a little bit different. So from a performance perspective, when I punch it, it has a very pleasant punch. And so from that perspective, it does respond to when you punch it. From the point of view of the turn, it feels also similar in terms of the turning radius and the just when you need to make like a U-turn, there is that level of radius, that turning radius, that is nice and small for a car like this. What I do notice that is somewhat different is the feel of the steering. So the feel of the steering on the 4 Series feels stiffer, even if I don't have it on sports mode. So if I put it on sports mode, I'm gonna go ahead and do that here. So right now I have it on sports mode, and I'm setting up the sports displays, which is the option that I get here. And it gets a little bit stiffer, but not as much as what I see in the 440i. So I want to go ahead and switch it back to comfort mode to see what it feels like that way. And it is still very well put together. It's still very engaging in that regard. When I go ahead and right now I'm driving on the highway. Let's go ahead and change lanes, punch it a little. The response is almost immediate. There is a little bit of lag because of the turbochargers, but they did a good job in making sure that you will be able to get torque while you reach that peak performance when the turbochargers kick in, so it's quite pleasant. The ride, so that was so I talked a little bit about the handling. The ride, on the other hand, is, I would feel it to be a little bit more pleasant. I think because this car is a sedan, is a 4-door car, it is meant to be a little bit more pleasant on the passengers. So the ride is a little bit better than I see that on a more sportier version of it. It is not to the point that you would see it like on a 5 Series, where you feel like you're driving on a cloud, basically, where you can put it on comfort mode and feel that way. Here in comfort mode is better than the 4 Series, but not as good ride as the 5 Series. This particular model, 2018, has pretty much the same layout as the 2017 model. It wasn't until the 2020 started to come out that you see the new redesigned 3 Series. But this 2018 model has the same tech that you see in the other cars. This one in particular has the slightly smaller screen for the infotainment, and it does not have navigation. But everything else that you can get, and the other models, you get it. The other complaint that I have is it does not have the upgraded iDrive. So the knob that it has is the smaller knob, and it has fewer buttons because of it. So when you sync your phone, you can do the Bluetooth sync for telephone calls and for some apps, but that's about it. No Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto, at least not that I can see in this model. So in terms of the creature comforts, the seating is very similar to that of the 4 Series. It does have all the buttons. It does not have the upgraded leather, so this is like a leatherette, but it's good enough. It's durable material, and it does have the bolstered side support for when you make turns. So the seats are literally identical to those of the 4 Series, so no complaints there. The fit and finish, very similar in that regard, again without those upgrades that the other one has, but you can obtain those in packages. So this 3 Series has packages that would allow you to get upgrades on the leather type. You can change the type of wood trim that it has. Get on the tech side, on the infotainment side, the larger navigation screen. So it does give you those options to be able to get a more engaging driving experience because of the tech, if that's important to you. But if whatever is important to you, if the driving dynamics and acceleration is important to you, well then this one has it. It does have that upgraded engine. The same goes for the transmission. So the transmission in this model is the same automatic transmission, which gives you 8 gears, paddle shifters, so you can change it manually. You can swap it on the shifter to the manual mode to the left, and then use the paddle shifters. Or if you're driving and cruising on drive, one thing that you can do is, let's say that you're going at a constant speed and you need to punch it. When you punch it, you hit the downshift, and then the car will detect what speed you need to go, such as this. And immediately goes up to the lowest possible gear that is safe for it to go, to get the most punch for that. And this is while cruising on the comfort mode. So after looking at the inside and outside of the car, after driving the car and trying to understand why is it that it sells so well, what is it about people that have driven other cars come and drive a car like this? And many times the comments that I get are to the effect of, for most people that are not too much into cars, it's like, don't know why, I can't put a finger on it, but for some reason I like this car more. This car meaning a BMW 3 Series. So if you do what I've suggested in other videos, which is you're looking for a car, and whether or not you know what you want, you just drive different competing models from other brands, and try to find out for yourself. Is that for you? Different cars for different people are like a pair of shoes. You can't tell someone which shoes they're gonna like. They have to try it themselves. But what I did find, having driven this car, is that it is very agile. It is very agile making corners, changing lanes. It's very agile and fast when you accelerate it. It's very engaging on the handling, yet it doesn't have a bad ride. It's got a small wheelbase, so it's got a good turning radius. It is got some very decent tech. I think this particular model doesn't have all the tech that I would like. I would probably get those upgrades in terms of navigation system, in terms of the iDrive, which is the one with the larger knob, and get probably the upgraded seats. But again, it starts making an impact on the bottom line, on the pricing of the car. So if what is important to you to keep the prices low is the driving experience, then the way that it's spec'd, it's a good spec. The 340i has the larger engine, the inline 6 engine, and it will give you the much more punch to the acceleration that you need. So if that's what's important to you, then you don't have to do anything to it. The way that this car is quite engaging. If you want some more creature comforts, then you can do those upgrades. But now I understood what makes this car as engaging and as pleasurable to drive. It's not a one thing, but it's a combination of all the things. But the driving experience probably is the most important one of them all. In the end, something could look good and something could even feel good, but may not drive very good. And there's cars like that out there. They look gorgeous, they're spec'd very nicely, and then you go and drive them, and then those are the people that say, well, there's something about it, but I didn't like it. And it's usually the driving experience. So that driving experience is what makes a BMW 3 Series special. And BMW knows that they have a jewel, and they have to stay ahead of the competition by continuing to innovate. And this 2018 model is already 1 year old. There's already 2020 models now in the late summer of 2019. So we're already seeing that they are doing that innovation. And because of that, I think that they'll continue to be one of the market leaders for sports four-door small sedans like this one. My name is George. This is GLLR Cars, and as always, drive safe.